Bro, I'm honestly done even trying to figure out what he's arguing about because none of this makes sense anymore. And it definitely can't be about that one single play people keep pointing at like it was the end of the world. Because when you watch the entire situation unfold in real time, you see far more than one snap. You see frustration boiling, poor decisions stacking up, teammates losing focus, and a coaching staff acting like pressure doesn't even exist. And then on top of that, you've got Jeudy picking the worst possible moment to test. Shedeur Sanders with some unnecessary trash talk that blew up in his face instantly. Because Shedeur didn't flinch, didn't hesitate, didn't shake for even a millisecond. He just shut it down with the same quiet confidence that defines him every week. And the crazy part is, Jeudy went into the moment loud, cocky, and ready for smoke. But he clearly wasn't ready for the intensity and discipline Shedeur brings everywhere he goes. Because when you've been carrying a season full of pain, pressure, and non-stop criticism on your back, a little trash talk from a frustrated receiver feels like nothing. And that's exactly why Jeudy folded the way he did. Because he expected a rookie vibe, someone who gets rattled by noise. But what he ran into was a quarterback who's been battling injuries, doubts, and horrible circumstances from the very first week. And Jeudy had no clue he stepped into the path of a guy who's been mentally tougher than half the veterans in this league. While the wildest part is that Shedeur shouldn't even have to deal with this kind of nonsense from other players when his own head coach keeps setting him up for failure with reckless decisions like those 2 4th-and-1 calls in their own territory, which made absolutely no sense. Yet when the media asked him about it, they didn't even bother directing the question at the coach responsible. Instead, they asked Shedeur, like he designed the playbook himself, and they expected him to throw someone under the bus. But because Shedeur always carries himself like a leader, he called the question rude and moved on, refusing to create drama, refusing to finger point, refusing to give the media the explosive headline they wanted. And that's the difference between someone like Shedeur and players like Jeudy. Because while Shedeur is out there protecting teammates who don't match his effort, Jeudy's out here quitting on routes, dropping easy plays, pointing fingers everywhere except at himself, and acting shocked when people start noticing the pattern. Like last week when he coughed up the ball with zero contact and everyone brushed it off. But then this week, he goes out there and once again looks disconnected, slow, and confused. Especially on that long route where the ball was placed perfectly by Shedeur, but Jeudy didn't finish the play, didn't put his hands up, didn't jump, didn't show even an ounce of fight. And then people wonder why fans questioned him instead of the quarterback. Because anyone with eyes could see what happened. And even then, Shedeur went to the podium and called it chemistry, taking blame he didn't need to take, covering for a mistake that was not his, and doing it with grace because that's the type of leader he is. But when you watch the replay, you clearly see Jeudy slow down, like he checked out before the ball even arrived, which isn't about chemistry at all. It's about effort, commitment, and responsibility. 3 things Shedeur gives every week, and Jeudy keeps failing to deliver. And what makes it even worse is that Stefanski doesn't hold anyone accountable except the one guy playing his heart out every snap. Because if a receiver is jogging through routes, that's corrected in practice. If a player isn't finishing plays, that's addressed immediately. If someone is slowing down, you fix it before the next snap. But instead, Stefanski lets everything slide while repeatedly throwing his young quarterback into dangerous, pressured situations that he shouldn't be dealing with at this stage. And then the media turns around and tries to make it seem like the quarterback should answer for decisions he didn't make, asking him about calls he didn't control, and then acting surprised when he refuses to blame others. Because Shedeur won't trash teammates publicly, no matter how badly they let him down. And he won't trash coaches either, even when the decisions are clearly putting him at risk. Because he believes in being respectful and protecting the locker room. But it's obvious that the people around him aren't protecting him with the same level of loyalty. And that's why the whole situation feels heavy, frustrating, and unfair. Because while Shedeur keeps trying to build chemistry with players who aren't matching his intensity, the system keeps failing him with risky calls. Miscommunication, teammates lacking focus, and a media that keeps trying to bait him into controversy, yet through all of this chaos, he remains composed, calm, mature, and sharp, proving again and again that he's built far differently than the guys around him, who crumble whenever the spotlight hits them. And that's exactly why someone like Jeudy ends up getting exposed. Because when you stand next to someone who's truly locked in, every lazy route, every missed effort, every emotional outburst suddenly looks worse, and now the entire world sees it. Because the footage doesn't lie, and neither do the patterns. And this is why Shedeur stands out as the only steady and consistent leader in the entire mess. Carrying the weight of the team, taking bullets from the media, covering for poor decisions he didn't make, trying to lift teammates who don't lift themselves, and still showing up with the same focus and courage. Which is exactly why all these little dramatic moments weather. It's Jeudy's trash talk, or Stefanski's reckless play calling, only highlight how mentally strong and battle-tested Shedeur truant the longer this season goes on. The clearer it becomes that Shedeur isn't just dealing with the normal stress that comes with being a young quarterback. He's carrying layers of issues that should be handled by coaches, veterans, and leaders around him, but instead, he's the one stepping into every fire, absorbing every hit, staying calm, while everything around him spirals. And it makes moments like that reporter's question even more irritating, because you could hear in his tone that he wasn't actually asking about strategy or football IQ. He was trying to corner Shedeur into criticizing Stefanski, trying to create a headline, trying to stir chaos between quarterback and coach. And Shedeur immediately knew what was happening. You could see it in his expression. He's tired of being the shield for decisions he didn't make, tired of answering for the 4th-and-1 failures, tired of taking responsibility for play calls that put him in impossible positions. Yet instead of snapping, instead of blaming, instead of letting frustration take over, he answered with controlled composure, calling it a rude question without being disrespectful, shutting it down while still standing tall. And that's leadership at a level most players his age never reach. And this is exactly why people keep saying he's built different. Because in the middle of messy coaching decisions, receivers giving half effort, reporters fishing for drama, and fans demanding explanations, he still keeps his poise like a polished veteran who has seen everything. And honestly, that's what separates him from someone like Jeudy. Because while Shedeur is battling pressure with discipline, Jeudy is battling his own emotions and losing every time. From the fumble last week that he casually brushed off like it never happened, to the route he gave up on this week, to the unnecessary trash talk that turned into embarrassment when Shedeur didn't fall for it. And what makes Jeudy's behavior even more frustrating is that he keeps acting like he's not part of the problem, keeps pointing fingers or showing confusion like these moments just happened. When the truth is that elite receivers rise in pressure, they fight through routes, they finish plays, they support their quarterback. And Jerry has done none of that recently, leaving Shedeur stranded, expected to magically create plays without the proper support. And then after the game, even with all the evidence on camera, Shedeur still took the high road and calmly labeled the failed route as a chemistry issue, shielding Jeudy from the criticism he deserved, showing once again that he values unity more than ego. But the footage speaks louder than any polite answer, because when you slow it down, frame by frame, Jerry isn't running full speed. His arms never come up. There's no attempt to adjust or fight for the ball. And you can literally see the touchdown that could have been if he had simply given effort. And this is where the frustration grows, not because receivers make mistakes, but because this wasn't a mistake. It was lack of effort, lack of awareness, and lack of accountability. And that's something a quarterback should never have to cover for. Yet here Shedeur is doing exactly that, all while the coach refuses to address the real problems, choosing instead to gamble on reckless plays that end drives early, put the defense in bad positions, and force Shedeur to answer for everything afterward. Which is ridiculous, because the coach is the one who should be explaining why he's calling aggressive plays deep in his own territory without any strategic purpose behind them. But somehow the questions always land on the quarterback, and he has to maintain the image of unity and confidence, even though everyone watching can tell he's being put in situations that don't suit his strengths or support his development. And that's why this entire situation feels like a storm of unnecessary weight dropped on one young man's shoulders. Because while Shedeur is fighting,